Hi guys, welcome to this morning's Five Property Show. So this is about professional pride. Why being an estate agent is a real privilege in what we do. I mean, people think they can do all on a computer, sell a home, find a home. But a computer can't do what we do at Five Properties. Understand your needs, the subtleties of the market. We can watch your eyes when you come into a room and know suddenly that you love the property you're looking at. That's what we do at Five Properties. And that's what we're going to talk about today, these fundamentals. So on today, we've got our guests here, is Andrea. Hello, Andrea. How are you this morning?
Morning, Jim. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Brilliant day today. Moving on, moving up. And Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, how are you today?
Hi, good morning, both of you. I'm fine, thank you. You guys okay?
Yeah, brilliant.
Good, thanks.
This is quite interesting off the back, this show, and we were talking about in the green room. And you're in a choir, Anne-Marie, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, so what choir is that?
It's called Dundee's Got Soul. It's actually all of five. So you've got Dundee, Glasgow, Dunfermline, and I think Cooper. Cooper could be the other one, actually. This is before I started working in Cooper. So there's four of us. But before lockdown, we used to rehearse every week, and then we'd have our concert at the end of the year. So it's just brilliant. Meet loads of people, and it's a part of a charity for bringing people out of loneliness. So this is part of. So whether you can sing or not, we invite. Everyone's welcome to come along. There's proper coaches. I must show you a clip one day of our concerts. They're absolutely brilliant.
I'm gonna come in the office one day and go, right, give me a song.
I'll gladly do a song for you, Jim.
And I'm not going to put you on the spot now because I feel like doing that.
We were just saying yesterday, actually, that we can have a Cooper choir now of our own. Because we've now got three staff that are vocal, and we can get Jimmy coached.
Yeah.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you? Good morning, Alana. How are you? And thanks for watching the show, guys. Have you ever listed all the things you love about what you do as an estate agent? It's an illuminating exercise and clarifying all the reasons why we do what we do. For some people, it can be a catalyst for a change in career. This idea show actually came from, because we usually talk about, we've said it before, we usually talk about things like understanding the market, how to declutter your home, and how to 6 top tips in selling your house the quickest way and the fastest way. But this week's, I thought to myself, let's talk about what it is to be an estate agent. A lot of people just genuinely don't understand. They genuinely think some people just think it's about, put your house in the market. And that's all we do. But we don't. There's a lot more to it than what you think. It goes on behind the scenes in order to make that happen. As I said, it's understanding and watching someone and their eyes light up when they walk in to view a house. And you know straight away that they love it. That's what being an estate agent is all about. And it's understanding that need. So this is where it came from. I mean, moving home is a big deal for everyone, really. For you, for the people you're buying from, for whoever's buying from you. But your move is also a big deal for us. So when it's time for you to find an estate agent in the Fife area, we'd love to hear from you about your plans. Right, okay, guys, so let's talk about the first one, hearing people's stories. I mean, everyone moves for a reason. The big ones including growing families, downsizing, change of school, relocation of work, while others are more particular and personal. Housing an enormous car collection. Not got that yet. I've got somebody with a couple of cars and needs a big garage, but no car collections. I'm waiting on that billionaire coming along. Change of scenery, lifestyle. We've got that just now, haven't we? I mean, Anne-Marie, we've got that just now, haven't we? Change of scenery and lifestyle. Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, what's your personal experiences from people's stories?
There's one couple that they lived on an estate. They've put the house on the market, got it sold, and they just moved maybe about 100 yards. So they're on the same estate, but because the positioning was different and the view was different, so they've just actually almost like they've moved next door because the house was positioned differently, and this was a recent one in Anstruther. And I just thought it was great. And they did it because they can. That was a unusual one for me anyway, you know. But it was, they could see their own house when we were on the viewing. They could actually see their own house. And it was
It's
just
amazing when you think about it, because we've actually got people. I mean, St Adrian's has just gone on, or it's just coming on, and we've got people over the road thinking, "I want to live on the other side of the road."
yeah,
Purposely, because it overlooks the golf course and towards the sea. So you're actually on the other side of the road. You're on the wrong side, as they say, for some reason.
yeah,
So it's just that flip about, oh, I want to move over the other side because I've got that fantastic view. I
Yeah.
love the area where I am, but it's just, I just want that wee bit extra to make it different and fundamentally different. That for me is about hearing people's stories, and then also about the background of what we can do to fit into what they want. That's ultimately it. So I often sit and listen to people a lot when I'm sitting in an appraisal. What is exactly what you want me to do? What do you want me to achieve for you? You know, is it, I know everybody talks about, I want the maximum price. Yeah, so what? Every estate agent does that, or every estate agent tries to do that. Let's be honest. Every estate agent tries to do that. They all talk about the maximum amount of money. They all talk about the quickest amount of time. But do they really understand what is that you want out of your next property move? Do they understand it? Maybe for the upsize, for the children, for the dogs, for the cats? Do they understand that you don't want near a road for your pets or your children? You know, do they truly understand that? And that, for me, is about people's stories. I mean, Andrea, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, having been a cattery owner in a previous life, a lot of people very much put their pets first and foremost when looking for their new home. You know, main roads and cats don't go well together. It's not to say that they can't survive in that situation. You just have to be a lot more careful. Maybe have your cat as a house cat. Dogs, you're going to be looking for maybe big gardens, secure. Same with children as well. You know, you want to be able to move into a house and not have to start building fences, and you know, you just want it already there. So, you know, when I'm going around properties and looking at them, I'm seeing these things. So when I'm speaking to people, right, okay, it's mostly secured, but you maybe need to put a little bit of extra security along the bottom to stop a small dog getting out or things like that.
It's these sort of things that inspire me as well. I mean, I often come back to this one all the time where I went round to the guy's house and it's hearing the story, and the whole house was painted black. And I looked at him and went, what? What's it all painted black for? Now, obviously, it was an acrimonious split. But his partner came home one day and said, this house is completely black. So guess what he did? He painted the whole house black and says, well, it is now. And I always say, Rob, if you're out there, it's a fantastic story. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, we sold the house for him. We got the result for him. We actually got a better result. And I remember the whole story. It was because there was a lot of stuff secured on the property itself. So it was quite difficult for him to understand that. So I actually looked behind it and I realised that a lot of the securities weren't on the house itself. It was actually called floating charges, which meant that he could sell the house and walk away from the transaction and actually have the relief that he's actually financially, you know, out of the deal. Whereas he thought he was tied into it, and it's understanding that need and understanding the background for that, I was able to help him get out of that situation in a financial, you know, what was effectively a financial turmoil for him. And it took all that stress away from him just for that reason. So it's not, for me, just about the selling of the house. It's the story behind it, which will make the fundamental difference to how I can solve it as easy as possible in order to help you move on. I mean, it is literally, isn't it, helping you manage life as it happens?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had a young couple. They had no idea about the first home fund, for example. They had a limited budget. So what they were looking for, I mean, I was taking them to a few viewings, but it was all sort of one bed apartments, you know, and I told them about the first home fund. They didn't know about it. I referred them to Cara Mortgages, and they were able to actually, you know, purchase I think it was a 2 or 3 bed house. And they actually, you know, so I felt really good that I was able to advise them that, and, you know, otherwise they would have ended up in a property that they didn't really want just for the sake of getting on the ladder, you know, but they actually were able to, you know, so I was glad I was able to help in that way. you know, because I know that they weren't really happy with what they were looking at, really, but the budget was limited, you know.
And these circumstances as well, I often tell the younger people that it's like, look, live with mum and dad as long as you can and just save up. Because the reality is, you know, when you move into rented accommodation, your money is going completely out the door straight away. I mean, we're not talking about this as dead money in rented accommodation. Rented accommodation provides a necessary tenure for what people want in order to help them in the mobility of labour and also their choice of property they want to stay in, if that makes sense. And the area they want to stay in for that purpose. But in this instance, I looked at it and thought to myself, well, it makes absolute sense. You know, live with your mum and dad as much as you can, save up as much as you can for your deposit. Yeah, get in touch with the First Home Fund. You know, we'll put you in touch with that as well. And we'll talk about that now, actually, in a minute, about the First Home Fund, because it's about, you know, to get in there before everybody else. And it's about realising and letting them understand they can do these things in order to get the result later on. It's delayed gratification we're trying to teach them. I mean, so many times we live in a microwave society. Ping, in an instant. We want everything now. That's really what it comes down to. And the whole system gears us up like that. The adverts we see in the television, the adverts we see round about us, the subtleties of everybody round about us doing everything else as well. We're watching everybody else saying, how come they're doing all this and how come they're doing that? Maybe I should be doing this. And we follow the trend as the herd mentality. But often it's like delayed gratification can give you that one step back to take 2 steps forward easier. You know, it's that sort of thing. And it's understanding and hearing people's stories to that degree. The First Home Fund, by the way, just to let everybody understand, will be coming back on the 1st of April. Now, the First Home Fund gives every first-time buyer in Scotland up to £25,000 towards buying their first house for the first time in Scotland for a first-time buyer. Now, the key here is the fund is now restricted because of the budget of the Scottish Government. It's a quarter of what it was last year, and it ran out in September last year. So the key is here, if you're going to buy a house as a first-time buyer and you're going to use the First Home Fund, hopefully, you need to get in there on the 1st of April and then get in there before everybody else and get yourself lined up with a property to make sure you can get that. Because it'll be gone. Once it runs out of money, it's gone. That's it. And I think it's only 1,400 people it's going to help outside, right throughout Scotland. So basically, you've got 1,400 people to get through that system. And once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, how many people are in Scotland? 6 million?
Got to be quick,
Yeah, you've got to be quick as a first-time buyer. So if you want to use that First Home Fund, if you want to know more about the First Home Fund, go on our YouTube channel and just type in on our channel, First Home Fund. Okay. All righty, guys. Any other stories, Andrea? You got any other stories you could think about?
I've recently helped some people just understand that, you know, they had their purchase of their property been held up a bit due to some paperwork not being signed by, it was a separation. So it did hold things up a fair bit. And, you know, the conditions that they were living in while they were waiting for this new home were not too desirable. They weren't very comfortable where they were. So, but they were threatening to pull out of the sale and go and look for something else. And I said, well, look, by the time you find something else and go through the whole conveyancing process, just sit tight. We'll see what we can do. And we sort of contacted the solicitors and sort of said, look, can we get things pushed along a bit here? This is, you know, the sale is threatened by the lack of progress. And they moved in yesterday, so I was quite happy.
We get that quite often, where we get that at the 11th hour, where where things like that happen, and you start and think to yourself, well, the reality is, if you do wait the next 3 months to buy another one, you're 3 months down the line before you get another one, and yet you're almost 3 days away from completing. So you're absolutely right. Why would you jeopardise that? But often people get this itchy feet, if that makes sense. And they're just like, and I'll be honest, I've done it before. It's called cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like, I'm no buying that house regardless. If they're no doing that on that date, that's it. It's no happening. And but it's our job to help people through that whole process to understand that. You know, the reality is you're going to have to then wait another 2 or 3 months to get your next house. So why would you just wait the next 2 or 3 days, if not the next 2 or 3 weeks, to make it happen? Because it will happen. Just sit tight and hang in there. It will happen. But often we get I call it we get call it in winning categories. It's called loser's limp. It's like, you know, when people used to run to the finish line and they were getting beat by somebody in front of them, and then all of a sudden their hamstring would go. And it's like, oh, my hamstring's gone. But we call it loser's limp. And in the reality, their hamstring was probably never gone, but it was an excuse for them no winning. That's the reality. So we call it's called loser's limp. And often that's what happens sometimes, that people just almost get to the end result, and they do something to self-sabotage themselves to do that. And it's identifying that's happening and pulling that person back and saying, look, you know, this is what the case is, and this is what's happening here. So it's understandable. It's a human emotion, and it happens to a lot of people, but this is what you need to do to resolve it. I think that's a real key point.
Yeah, I think, you know, as estate agents, we have to anticipate that the vendors and the purchasers are both going through an extremely stressful time for them. I mean, we do this day in and day out, and, you know, sometimes we can come a bit blasé about it, but really at the end of the day, this is a huge deal for the people that are selling and the people that are buying.
Yeah.
We have to stay grounded and remember that, and, you know, give the people the support. You know, even though that they could come into the office ranting and raving or on the phone saying, oh, I don't like this, I don't like this, and, you know, you're not doing anything to help me. They don't realise just how much we are doing in the background to make sure that they get into their new home or they get their sale through properly.
Yeah.
Newsflash, I'm probably as stressed as they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't show it. It's like behind the scenes, it's like, oh, panic! Running back and forward. It's like Home Alone running through the corridor. Like, and then the person comes on the phone, it's like, oh, hello, Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah, that's right. Don't
How lovely to hear from you.
But that's the reality. That's what happens behind the scenes for people that don't realise that. They don't, you know, they think it's all nice and it all goes smoothly and we've got an easy coasting. Like, the reality is, I'm putting my reputation on the line, and I've said this is what I'm going to do, so I better damn make sure that I'll deliver. That's really what it comes down to for me. It's world-class service as far as I'm concerned, if it's me involved in this. And that's ultimately, it's, you know, the classic is about the hearing people's stories. It brings me on to the things about helping people's dreams come true as well. I mean, it may sound soppy, but it's a major part of our estate agency. There's so much riding on every move that you cannot be impervious to the whole situation. It can sometimes feel like we have several families or households at once, and being part of them and all of them at the same time is nothing short of extraordinary. But if you've ever moved home, you'll know how it heightens your nerves and your emotions. We've just talked about that now. Even with all the excitement about the future and the combination of uncertainty, unpredictability, upheaval is often mixed with specific timeframes and urgencies. It's not the greatest recipe for staying relaxed, really. You know, I feel stressed just talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to my own experience when I sold my house just over 5 years ago, I mean, literally, we were all packed up. The removal vans were all booked and everything. And in fact, one removal van had already put stuff into storage. So we were camping out with one mattress and a kettle and some tea bags for the next day. And eventually the missive signed about 5 o'clock the day before our exit date. And if it had all fallen through, I don't know what we would have done. But, you know, we're not the only people that...
You had a world-class estate agent, didn't you?
We did, yes. And they kept me very calm and reassured. And I'm sure I gave them a lot of grief.
You did, Andrea. You gave me a lot of grief.
But you're right. We've all been there. We've actually been there ourselves personally, so we do understand. We know, you know. I mean, I think
at one point when you sent back the description for approval, I thought, does this woman want to be an estate agent or something?
And hey, oh, look where I am now.
You're doing exactly what that is. The description. Amazing, eh?
I know.
I mean, there's lots of what ifs, and there's so much. There's plenty of putting minds to rest and giving people comfort. There's rarely a sale without even a major bump in the road when you think about it. And estate agents are on the front line. And when there's a wobble, we're usually the ones that have to deliver the news. I mean, it's as well as delivering the news as well. That, we often have to deliver, the not so great news as well as the good news. I mean, hey, it's brilliant delivering good news, but how do you deliver the not so good news? And that's really a challenge as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I think I think the worst news that someone can hear at the moment is that your sale has fallen through for whatever reason. And all we can do then is release a report and say, well, look, right, we've got this list of people. We've been talking to people. We've still been taking inquiries. Get it advertised straight away again, back on the market, get it sent out to as many people as possible. And we'll try and get you sold again as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that happened recently.
Yeah, it did.
Recently.
Twice.
Yeah, and we were able, and we were able to keep it moving, just get someone, lined up.
The key here as well, though, is the fact that we have other people in line just in case.
Yeah.
So it's like, your sales falling through, but that's fine. But we phoned 5 other people and they're ready to offer. That's really what it comes down to. And that's the key about making sure you still take inquiries as an estate agent, even though you've got the property under offer or sold, because you never know what's going to happen. So you always make sure there's something in the background just in case. And a plan B every single time for what happens. And it's like what you say, Andrea, if anything does, if plan B isn't there, well, plan B is actually, right, we're ready, let's get it back on, let's do a pre-launch, let's do another launch so it looks like a new property for the first time. Rather than do what most other estate agents do is they go switch on the button to let it be seen again. It's like, no. We're not switching the button. We start a new listing from the very start. We then manipulate and kid the websites into thinking it's a new listing for the first time. And it resets everything. That's what comes of being a systems person. Understanding how the system works and understanding how to manipulate the system to get the result you want. That's probably key as well. And we'll probably talk about that anyway. But there can also be reasons that the sales go through, sometimes by solving real problems and sometimes by simply keeping people calm. We hear every side of the story directly from everyone involved. I mean, often there's a saying that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And to a degree, an estate agent is stuck in the middle between the buyer and seller and the solicitor as well and every other party. And often we are the ones that have to be the linchpin in all of that to make that happen. And that is the damned if you do and damned if you don't. You're often blamed for everything, and even though it's not your fault.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I try to explain to people as much as possible that once their property gets an offer accepted on it, it's then really into the hands of the solicitor to do all their bit. And we just kind of sit in the background, but we are still there keeping tabs on everything. But quite often we'll get, vendors or buyers still phoning us up and asking questions, so when we try to contact a solicitor and say, look, we're doing this, sometimes the solicitors can get a little bit antsy, if that's a good word, because they feel like we're treading on their toes, but we're not doing it because we want to antagonize them or annoy them. It's just that we're thinking of our vendors and our buyers' best interests.
Yeah.
That's it at the end of the day. I mean, we're contracted to do a job for a seller, so I'm no caring whose road I get in to get that result. I'm going to get it done. That's the reality. It's my job to make sure that happens for them in the circumstances and what I've discussed with them. And I'll do everything within my power to do that. That's really what it comes down to. You're absolutely right, though. When a solicitor gets involved, the difficulty here is the sellers do come back to us, the buyers do come back to us, but the reality is when you do get the solicitor involved once you've sold it, you need to go to your solicitor to get the answer, because if we start discussing with you the answer and then the solicitor's left out of that answer, then the solicitor doesn't know what's going on in the transaction, and then therefore they can make a vital and fundamental mistake because they're not aware of a condition that you've just discussed between the buyer and seller and leaving them out of the equation. So that's why once the solicitor's involved, you need to start going through the solicitor and asking them to clarify certain situations. I know it's an easy gig to pick up the phone to the estate agent, But the reality is you need to speak to the solicitor to keep him in the loop or her in the loop of the whole equation to make sure that happens. To say it requires patience would be an understatement. But when it all comes together and the contracts are exchanged and the calls of congratulations are really, truly special moments that we all love, and the fact it happens. I mean, when people walk into the office to get their keys, how great do you feel about that? Handing over their keys to their new home.
Yeah. Lovely. I mean, a lady came in yesterday for her keys, and I was on the phone at the time, and she came in, and once I finished my call, she sort of looked at me, and she was like, it was like a sigh of relief. She said, I can't believe this day's come. She said, this was just yesterday. She said, it's an end of an era, but it's a new beginning. And it was just so lovely, gave her her gift box, the gift boxes that we give out, and that was like an added bonus to her day as well. It was just such a great feeling. It was just, it just made me realize why I love my job, and it's at that point when they come in for those keys, it's nothing better than that. Great feeling. And that was just yesterday. But it happens often. It happens quite often. It's that relief. They're finally there, pick up their keys, ready to start their new life.
Sorry, Amber, you have no frozen. I just thought I'd say for a while.
It's exciting as well when you're dealing with verbal offers from a client for a property, and you're going backwards and forwards between the client and the vendor, and then the vendor decides yes, they're going to accept that, and you go back and you tell, maybe it's a first-time buyer, yes, our vendor's happy to accept your offer, and you just get it in writing to us now, and you're like, oh yeah, and because you've got their excitement as well. And one of the things I was going to say is, I think, like nursing as a vocation, it's something you're kind of like born to do. You can't really learn it, I don't think. And I think estate agency is a bit like a vocation as well. You have to love it. There's a real passion for it. You've got to have the understanding from all your family and all your friends, and that it's not really just a normal job. It's in your head 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Not 9 to 5, definitely.
No,
in your head. I mean, it doesn't really, in my mind, it doesn't really start with the love for property, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people actually say that I'd love to be involved in this because I love property. It's like it's not about loving property. It's about understanding people's needs, delivering the results that they want. That's what estate agency is about. Yeah, the property is the thing that we do. Yeah, the product that we are selling or the service that we are selling, but it's understanding the needs and making that happen for someone, which is way outweighs anything to do with I love property and all the rest of it. It's exactly what you said. Like, it's the same like vocation. It's you're hardwired and it's built into you to have that sort of mentality to serve other people, dare I say. And even when the chips are down, you still get up and do more than you can before to make that happen for them. Because you want, because you're just driven to do that, and you're that type of person. I mean, I will drive to the end of the world to make it happen. If somebody says I could sell that house tomorrow, but you've got to start on a journey and you've got to walk to Land's End right now to make that happen, I would get my shoes on and start walking. Yeah. That's the reality. Because I would do
after lockdown.
To make that happen. Yeah, after lockdown. I could walk in, I could roll in a bubble.
You could.
I could get a bubble thing and just roll down there instead. There you go. Aye, that's another thing about what we do. It's understanding and making it happen and working out the process in order to do that. So it's first thing that popped into my mind. Lockdown's in place. You can't do that because of that. Then, I'll roll about in a bubble then. First thing that comes into my mind to make that happen. Solution orientated. I mean,
there's a will, there's a way.
Yes, exactly.
Every day is a different day. I mean, when I talk to friends about being in a stage, and the conversation usually involves freedom and fresh air, most people I know or meet in some sort of way love the idea of being in a stage, and the reasons they give are variety and inspiration. But being in a stage means meeting new people every day, being out in a neighbourhood and seeing people inside their homes. From purely a service point of view, it makes a wonderful week. I mean, there is variety all the time. And I love hearing about other people's stories. I mean, often I'll sit there forever and ever and I think, Jim, you should leave. Because the reality is, it's like you're keeping them, and it's like, because I could listen to their stories all day. Probably hence the reason, one of the reasons I've got the Sunday slot is to overcome that thing as well, so I could stay short. Because often I'll sit and think to myself, Jim, you should be leaving by now. You know, you've done what you're meant to do. You've told them about the valuation of their house, about what they need to do, and all the rest of it. But I'll sit there and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and I'll sit and listen to what they've got to say, and I love the stories that they'll tell me. You know, I could literally just sit there all day, but I know I've got another appointment and I have to go. That's the reality. Do you guys feel like that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
at a house last week doing descriptions, and of course when I went in, the lady was sitting there and she was knitting baby clothes, and I saw the ball of wool was on the stool in front of her, and I said, "Oh, is that baby Aaron? You know, the type of knitting wool?" She said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "Oh, my mum's knitting with that." You know, we started talking about so many things, you know, but we both had very similar ideas, you know, and then she showed me the box of all the baby clothes that she's knitted, and you know, she does it, and she used to sell it at car boot sales and things, but it's absolutely amazing. You know, it's just
I mean, I'll be out doing a viewing, and I start talking to someone. We're looking around the house, and it's all about the house, and something will come up, and we realize we've got something in common. Maybe I was with a lady the other day, and she's into vintage clothes, and she has a car boot sale, and you know, we were talking about the clothes, how much shoes she's got, because the property I was showing her was actually a 6-bed property, but it's only actually her and her dog. She said she needs this room for just her shoes, that room for just her clothes, you know, and the conversation went like that, and the viewing is only meant to be half an hour. But
what was her first name? Was it Imelda by any chance?
Oh my goodness, no. But yeah,
it was a winner of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh dear, but yeah, she loves her clothes and shoes, and we had that in common. And you know, with the viewing lasted 45 minutes. It shouldn't have really gone
What other
that
things you
long.
talk about? Dogs, cats, triathlon, running, cycling, historical things, all history. See, when people start to talk about the history of an area, like when you get into the history of East Neuk and St Andrews and Cooper and Leven and Glen, you know, the whole history about everything. Glenrothes, I mean, Glenrothes is a new town, but it's got a huge amount of history with the fact that Glenrothes was built for the coal mining industry. You know, that's ultimately it. And then it never happened. And it's like, what are we going to do with it now? It's like, we built all this place for the coal industry and it's like closed. So, and then the paper making industry and all these things about, you know, it just floats my boat, you know, and the historical, but it gathers information as well. So when a buyer comes along, you know exactly what to talk about to that buyer. And that's what people buy into. People do not buy houses for a house. They buy it for a lifestyle and to make it a home. That's ultimately it. So it's understanding all these needs that make that happen. Andrea, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I'm just remembering back to a house that we were marketing for a little while. Unfortunately, the gentleman's circumstances changed and he could no longer move. But his house was just so full of like photographs of him with lions and tigers, and him and his wife, their life in Africa, and his wood turning shed at the top end of the garden. You know, put the lathe on.
It
was just amazing.
Scotland.
Absolutely amazing property, and such a lovely gentleman. And he did make a good cup of tea. But when I went there to do the descriptions, our photographer was there at the same time. But you know, he was quite an elderly gentleman, and we spent, I think we must have been there about 2.5 hours in total, and we cleared every single room and photographed it and then put everything back in again. But you know, it was just amazing, and you know, I hope he's okay. And you know, you don't forget these people. You know, every little
so many
story remains in your lives for a long time.
But you're exactly right. That's what it is. It's you've taken a piece of their experience and their wisdom, and for me, it's a lot of the time is what can I learn from someone. You know, when I speak to someone, it's like, is there something I can learn from their experiences, which will help me or help someone else move on as a result of that interaction? That's really on a totally clinical and logical level. like I am sometimes. That's kind of how I see it to a degree. I mean, no 2 days are the same, really. I mean, one day it's like an exciting prospect, and where it'll come and go, and who you'll meet, and what you'll see, and the destination always brings something new. And then to a design to a beautiful garden, an impressive building, or a surprise view. I mean, when you see some of the views that you'll get in properties. I mean, I've never Friday Walk. I mean, we've just put Friday Walk on the now, but it's. You would never think that Friday Walk actually looks over all the rooftops towards the Firth of Forth. You never get that impression. So how do you convey that in a description? Well, you don't to a degree. You put it in video. That's it. Mm-hmm. You tell people in video. That's the way to get the message across. You don't put it. You can put it in the description, but it never gets that feeling that you hear now. How you can see these views. I mean, it sits south. So basically the sun comes up and it sits on your front of your house all day long. Lovely. So you can sit in every part of your garden. Make sure you wear suntan lotion, by the way, so you don't burn, because it is like that. And it's open all the time. And it overlooks a park as well. So there's all these different things as well that you learn. And that's what I mean about every day is different. And then some days you'll walk into properties and you'll think, geez, it's like a bomb site. it's like how am I going to sell this? But then that's the reality when you think about it. It's the first thing in your mind is, what am I going to do and how am I going to sell this? What we need to do to make that happen. Sometimes people's circumstances are that they can't do anything about that. They just have to sell it as is. You had one recently up in Lime Grove. It was like that completely. It was just the way it had happened. It's like sold as seen. And literally, it was quite challenging. But I tell you what, got a fantastic price for it. I think we went to a closing date. So they got a great result for that reason. So it's these things as well. It's even the more meticulous planning from the desk to the car to the cafe or the bench or the unexpected is never far away. And you never know what the next phone call will ever bring. That's as well. It's the excitement of that rush that you get from it. And truly, it is a rush, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Each phone call could lead to anything, you listen to their circumstances and you write it all down. And, before you know it, you're at a property with them. They love it. It could be anything. Phone calls can just take you anywhere. And it's just great. I mean, one woman, she rang, she was looking for a property, didn't know what she really wanted. We had a property on the market for quite a while, actually. She was looking for ages. I took her to this property in Lucas and she fell in love and she put an offer in. It was accepted, but I really wasn't expecting that. She's like a single woman on her own. This property is like a big 4-bed, period property in the middle of a forest. Yeah. She absolutely fell in love with it, and that was it, and that was just out of a phone call. She was actually looking for an apartment, and she ended up buying that, So yeah.
But ultimately, as well, the other one as well, what I love about what we do is we're part of a community. That's what it comes down to. I mean, we are hardwired, when you think about the logic of this, to be with other people. It is in our nature, and it's from an ancient ritual of sitting around the campfire after a long day's hunt to enjoying a Sunday lunch with your closest friends and your family. Really, that's what it comes down to. But the feeling of being part of a neighbourhood is, you can never buy that feeling. It's just knowing. And the fact that I love bumping into people that I've spoken to somewhere on their moving journey along. And I love bumping into them and finding out where they are from then on and where they've gone to. But I also love the fact that people realize that I'm the person that can actually solve all the problems, if that makes sense. And that's it. I that's what I do. I'm a fixer. That's really what it comes down to. If you've got a problem, it almost sounds like one of these programs. If you've got a problem,
I don't think we'll go down the line of Jim will fix it.
No, we'll not go down that one.
Maybe not.
I was trying to. Hey, wait a minute! You brought that up. I was trying to avoid that. But really, it's almost like the A team. If you've got a problem, just call on the A team or the F team.
Well, we've got the A team, we've got Andrea, and we've got Anne Marie.
Perfect, absolutely. But it's not unusual to meet the owner of a home that I've valued or have had on the market, and those casual chats in the street are just really lovely moments, and they're fun, to have. Or maybe it's a family you've moved in through over the years from it, and whose children have grown up to possibly impossibly tall. And I can remember all the names again, but it's equally yesterday. I mean, it was at a fantastic property yesterday, James Ingalls and Cooper. And just, I was looking forward to seeing the dogs.
I know that feeling.
Beautiful spaniels. It's like, oh, they're beautiful, and it's like that was the best thing about going to meet them. I mean, they're absolutely wonderful couple. Nick and his wife, absolutely Rebecca. They were beautiful, but their dogs were actually amazing. And we had a great time. And we're bringing the property on to rent as well because it suits their purpose and it suits into their circumstances. So again, it's finding out, initially, should I sell, should I rent, should I sell or rent, should I stay where I am? It's understanding people's needs and giving them right advice to do that. But then there's a buyer that I met just once in a viewing. We got on really well. We discussed the taps or the schools or the property prices, but we haven't seen each other since. Then there's a flicker of recognition, but neither of us can remember why until the penny drops. I mean, have you got that where people? I mean, I often walk down the street and people say, "Hi, Jim, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not really sure what that is." It's like because genuinely you see that many people every day, but you know that person, but you just can't recollect it. But it's that sort of, and then it comes back to you when you speak to them. It's like,
the penny drops. Yeah,
right. The penny drops, exactly. And being constantly in the neighbourhood means you're using other local businesses. That's another thing which comes from when we're really handy, when I'm asked for recommendations about where things are. I often say to people when it is the classic, if you phone me up and ask where the best shoe shop is in St Andrews, I'll be able to tell you. Things like that, or where the opticians are, or where the best mechanic is, where the best fish merchant is, where the best restaurants are. You understand your area so well that when anybody asks you any of these questions, you know the answer to it. And that's why you become an estate agent. It's not just about selling houses. It's about dealing with people and their circumstances and making it happen. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Is that how you feel, Anne Marie?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a viewing on Monday with someone I've been speaking to. This property is in Pitlessie, and he was just asking me, because he missed out on another property, so he was just asking me, what's in Pitlessie? Can I just nip out and get a pint of milk? Is there anywhere near enough? Because he doesn't really know the area, but so I was able to, tell him, well, it's a 3-minute drive. Nice. Yeah, sorry?
The Pitlessie Inn's brilliant.
Yeah, well, I was able to just because I had to do a bit of research, in fairness. So I was able to tell him exactly where, what is, how long it will take him to get here. And it was such a good feeling that I was able to tell him to do that. And he was like, right, okay, yep, looking forward to the viewing on Monday, as long as I've got those things around me. So I was, so that's a good example of what you're asking, because I was able to help him with that.
But Les is brilliant from the point of view that you really are in the countryside. That's what I love about it the most. You've got instant access to the hills. And some fantastic walks round about you in the countryside, but you're straight onto the road and you're right along to the A92, or you just go the other way along to Cooper, and you've got Tesco's, you've got the railway station, and then across the back of Pitlessie as well, you've got Ladybank, so you've got the railway station there as well, and you've got amenities and places there as well. So Pitlessie is really for someone that really seeks that lifestyle and that break away from the hustle and bustle of the everyday city, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
We take this completely for granted about where we live. We don't understand what we've got on our doorstep. And opposite people have lived in Manchester, Birmingham, London, and all the major cities with high concentration of people, and all they do is every day is almost like the Matrix. They just go, they get their briefcase and they go to their work every day and they come back home. They go to their work every day and come back home, go to work every day and come back home. They've got nothing else to do, and then plant themselves in front of the telly.
Yeah.
And they've got nothing else to do because there is nothing else round about them, because literally the whole thing's been built on that premise that it's there to work as a hive for ultimately worker ants. And that's what sometimes we end up becoming. So when you see somewhere like Pitlessie and Cooper and St Andrews and Eastmeuk and Leven and Kirkcaldy and Glenrothes and Dunfermline, and you see Fife, welcome to God's country, folks. You don't realise what you've got here. It is absolutely beautiful. It's stunning.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we just take it for granted. And you need to visit somewhere else that's highly concentrated, or some of these other places that are really, third world countries, and you'll really appreciate what you've got.
Yeah.
It's awe-inspiring. And that's ultimately understanding what we've got in our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to say, actually, I overheard that conversation on the telephone, Anne-Marie. You were saying that's where somebody could pop out to buy a pint of milk. But really, in today's world, it is possible to go somewhere and do your whole shopping for a week. Milk has dates on it now that lasts for over a week. There isn't the need to go out every day for shopping, and I think people shouldn't let that fact put them off buying a property just because there might not be a local shop.
That's why I've got a refrigerator.
I think he's looking to just go and he just wants to go out and walk somewhere. It sounds like he wants to get out of the house and be able to do that. I was able to tell him as well, they deliver milk in Pitlessie. They deliver papers. They did, everything's delivered as well. They've got a milk round. You don't really see that often anymore, but they have that there. And, I was able to tell him that as well. So,
I mean, it's perfect from that point of view. Plus the fact you do get home delivery from supermarkets now.
Yeah, you get that now.
You get that all delivered.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to worry about it. It's really just a lifestyle choice. That's all it comes down to. Yeah. I mean, you've got the pub at the end of the road anyway, so it's perfect for that. So, hey, as long as you've got a pub, you don't really bother about anything else.
I know. You're absolutely right.
Ultimately, I mean, here as well as it comes to the next one, the final one I want to talk about is the joy of completion day. I mean, we've briefly touched on it before. I mean, saving the best for last, really. And seeing all the smiles on people's faces when it's time to hand over the keys and collect their keys really does take some beating. I mean, it probably is the ultimate sort of prize about what we do. Whatever the ride was like along the way, and some sales are certainly smoother than the others. We know that. All the stresses and strains are replaced with the excitement of a new beginning. Anyone moving into a new home can't wait to open their door, arrange the furniture, and begin their new life. It is a day of emotion as well. If you're leaving the place that's been your home for a long time, well, maybe you've raised a family there, but it builds you've built a mountain of memories. And saying goodbye can be a significant moment as well. But it's balanced with us starting a new chapter. And for me, it means so much to have played a part in making that happen for someone else. I was round a house recently, and we've got it on the market, and I was looking at the doorway, and they've got all the heights of the children as they grew up marked on the doorway.
I love that.
And I thought, that's a huge amount of memory. We'd actually, often as well, when you're decorating, you uncover underneath the wallpaper, maybe somebody's written an inscription. We uncovered something the other day. Actually, I saw it on one of the Facebook pages. Somebody from Rowan Decorators in Leven. Now, you guys will know Rowan Decorators, but Rowan Decorators was a local business. I know Ogilvie and I know Douglas, the sons, and I know older Ogilvie's no longer here, and his mum as well. I used to take their dog for a walk, actually. I used to take our dog Berkey for a walk when I was a wee boy. But Rowan Decorators, I remember they saw that photo from Rowan Decorators, and I think it was like 1960. And it's like, wow, that was before I was born, but I do remember it because I remember Rowan Decorators and I remember the whole thing. And I thought, wow, that's unbelievable to think that people work with Rowan Decorators. I think my grandfather actually managed Rowan Decorators as well. He was their manager that ran it.
Wow.
So that's why the connection was. But to see that and hear that, and it brought back so many memories, that's the kind of thing that you see in a house with the memories as well. And it's the joy of completion on that day. But it is leaving all the things behind that you've built memories and moving on to new chapters. I mean, have you guys had personal experiences and similars?
Yeah. When I was in my old house in Newborough, I mean, it was an old manse, and when we took wallpaper off and various things, there was quite a lot of things written on the walls, with different dates and whatnot. But the most interesting thing was the lath and plaster in one of the bedrooms was just absolutely knackered. So we took it off and we were putting up plasterboard. But I mean, we actually uncovered a little sort of box within the wall, within the the actual stud partition bit, and it had a little greaseproof paper thing wrapped just sitting on the ledge behind the wall, and we opened it up and it was a bourbon biscuit. And I don't know when it was ever put there, but it was a bourbon biscuit. I've got a picture of it somewhere.
I thought you were going to say something more sinister.
No, I didn't. Well, it was maybe left. I didn't take any more of the wall down. Put it that way.
I tell you what, because have you seen Leonard Lowe's Sunday Slot with Me, and he talks about how the witches, they used to put wee jars behind the walls and put them in and cast spells.
Yeah, and in the fireplace and things.
Witches away, and it's like, and all the things they did hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it's like, wow, people actually believe that. But I suppose it's herd mentality. Anyway, the joy of completion on the day can't be anything better because you're making it happen for someone. But for me, it's probably the personal recommendation. I mean, I often walk into people's houses and say, when I get the result, I'll get the result you want me to get, and I'll probably get more. But the most important thing to me is your recommendation for someone else. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's people who know people. I mean, you know yourself. Basically, most of my business comes from personal recommendation for people that come to me. They'll just come straight to me and they'll say, I want advice on this, I want advice on that, I want you to sell my house, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that. And it's like, it's me it comes to. And for me, that's the ultimate of why I do what I do. Often I say to people, you often get people that say, what was it the other day about getting up in the morning? Says, when you get up in the morning, what are you grateful for? And I remember one guy called Davy Kirk, and Davy's still here today. And Davy says, Davy, what are you grateful for? And Davy says, when I get up in the morning, I just do that. If I've got a pulse, it's going to be a great day. and I thought, I'm going to adopt that, because the reality is, if you get up in the morning, you've got a pulse, it's a great day. And that's as best you can get, and you can't get any better than that. And you can only go up from that point when you think about it, because if you get up in the morning and you don't have a pulse, you're not getting up. You didn't can.
Exactly, you're absolutely right.
You worry when someone else has got to find you've not got a pulse.
Oh my God.
But ultimately, that's what it is. You get up in the morning, punch the air, and you think, right, today's going to be a great day. I'm raring to go. And ultimately, that's what it is. I mean, what is it for you, Andrea?
I think it's that sometimes just when you can go that little bit above and beyond to help somebody, and even if it's nothing to do with selling their house, but then maybe just whatever else happens in their lives, if you're there for them to chat to, and you can just give them a bit of emotional support. I mean, sometimes it's totally unconnected with selling their house. And I have made a very good friend out of one of our vendors from about 6 years ago. And, we're very good friends now. And it was a bit of a tricky situation selling her house. And she was doing her own viewings, and it was just too much emotionally stressful for her. So I started doing the viewings. We got the sale, got the price, and we've been friends ever since. It's a nice, good relationship.
Do you think though, it's everybody uses us anyway, become friends anyway? The old adage about a stranger is just a friend you've not met yet.
Yeah.
For me, it's ultimately true, because it's not because you've used me to sell your house. It's because you've put your trust in me to do that. And that's ultimately why I would consider people like that as friends. I would do anything for them because they trusted me and enabled me to do something, with their biggest tax-free asset. You've ultimately put the most important financial decision in your life in my hands and in the team like yourselves to make that happen for you. And that's everything at the end of the day, to have that trust from someone. That's what I think the joy of completion encompasses as well is the fact we've made it happen for someone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got one of our vendors, well, older vendors. She, when our friends, you know, I class her as a friend. I'm sure she does as well. We go out for walks. Got nothing because she's, you know, we managed to sell her property, so that's all done now. But we've still maintained a friendship. You know, we try to meet up at least once or twice for the month. We go walking. I go walking with her dogs. I love them. So I'm a dog lover. And yeah, and that's actually a friend now, a lifelong friend, you know, and that's just out of doing this job and being able to listen to her, help her, because her sale wasn't really straightforward either, you know.
Yeah.
I think it fell through twice, I think. And in the end, I managed to find someone to, you know, to buy the property. And yeah, got a lifelong friend.
Here's a classic. You mentioned about dog lovers. Here's a classic top tip to know if you can trust your estate agent. If your pet goes towards them and cuddles onto them, you know you can trust your estate agent. Because I don't know what it is, but every single one I walk into with cats and dogs and whatever, they all come over to me and sit down or they'll cuddle me. And I get loads of people saying, they never do that with anybody else, even members of my family. And it's like, my God. And it's like, but it's just how I am. It's who I am. And I think to a degree, animals can sense that more than humans can.
I was just going to say that. They know, don't they?
Yeah.
And their owners know that too. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. You're halfway there once the pet likes you.
It is. I mean, it's ultimately probably one of the biggest test barometers that you could have for knowing if you can trust someone is that actually, does your pet actually warm towards them? That's really what it comes down to. It's funny you had actually mentioned that because I had it yesterday as well with somebody that actually said that. Oh, they didn't usually do things like that. But it's often I'll have the scariest pet when you walk in the door and then I'm beginning to talk. Now, I don't know if this is because I'm boring sometimes, but often they'll fall asleep. often they'll fall asleep next to me and they go, I can't believe that, how he or she's come up to you and they've just sat beside you and they've just fallen asleep. And I usually turn around and say it's probably because I've got a boring voice. It's like I could be anybody asleep at 5 paces.
Oh dear.
You need to take the catnip out your pockets.
but it is. I mean, that's ultimately the joys of being in a state. Guys, that's an hour. How could we waffle on about being in a state for an hour?
Easily.
It's that. I mean, ultimately, that is just a wee insight into the joys of being in a state agent, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
When people do say, "Oh, I would love to be in a state agent because I love houses," it's like that's not what it's about. It's not about houses. It's about people, and it's about looking after people and delivering the results you said you were going to get for that person and going above and beyond the call of duty to make it happen for them. I mean, look what we're doing this morning, you know, but no, nobody pays us for doing this, but we do this of our own heart. Look at the Sunday slot tomorrow. Look at the property update tomorrow night. They're all lives. I'm going out to somebody there now in St Andrews to value their house and with the possibility of putting it on. We're uploading. I've done a retarget campaign this morning on social media. It's like nobody's asking us to do this, but I know I need to do this to make it happen on the critical path process in order to get the result I want for what I told them I'm going to get at the end. And if I do all these things in a row to make that will happen as a natural result of what I do. That's ultimately it.
And the house side of it is actually a bonus.
Yeah, and the key here is though, it's yourself, Andrea, it's Anne-Marie, it's Jimmy, it's Perry, it's Richard, it's Charlotte, it's Shaida, it's Karen, it's May, it's Tony, and it's Elaine, and it's all these people that fit into that plan of action like a well-oiled machine to make that happen for the customer. That's what it is. That's ultimately what it is to be an estate agent, to make that happen. It is a well-oiled machine. And on that note, guys, that's us. Final thoughts, Andrea?
Oh, I've just looked forward. I was going to say I was looking forward to Monday, but being an estate agent never stops. So
it's never a Monday. Anne-Marie,
I'm going to nip out and get my shopping.
Final thoughts, guys. We're coming up for less than an hour. We've got to get on Instagram.
Final thoughts. I just love to build rapport with people. I love the day when they come to pick up the keys. No day's the same, but I love it. rearing to go. I'm actually working today, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks very much for everybody watching, guys. Thanks very much for Alana, Nigel, Phil. Guys, if you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. We'll answer them later on. And that's us till next week. Next week's going to be a lettings show. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to have Richard on it. It's going to have Karen on it. It's going to have Charlotte on it. So, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.